is Brian Harrington. I am with Red Hat Consulting. I am here to talk to you for a little bit about something called Augeas, and specifically Augeas with OpenShift. So Augeas is a configuration management tool created by within Red Hat by a gentleman named David Luttencourt, who unfortunately is moving on, or just moved on to greener pastures. But it is, at the core of it, it's a configuration management tool, like I was saying. So the big thing about it is it's aimed to provide a local configuration API for Linux to make it easy at the same time to integrate new configuration files into what they call this Augeas tree. But you're probably asking, why should I bother with this? And why should I bother with this specifically in the context of OpenShift? So the idea is that it allows you to manipulate your configuration files safely, safer than using grep, sed, awk, etc. And on top of that, it is syntax agnostic. So that means you can use the same tool whether or not it's a bash style config file, YAML, INI, XML, etc. So in the end, the big thing here is that the master database is the native config files themselves. So rather than having to parse this out, store it in Mongo, store it in MySQL, store it in something else, you actually can use this alongside other types of configuration tools. If an admin goes into a box and does vi on a file and then saves it, it's not going to obliterate or break your process for doing that. So like I said, your configs are their own master database. So a lot of folks love using Puppet. One of the tricks with Puppet, though, is it stores normally your file as a hash, saves an MD5, checks the MD5, and if your file is changed, then it pushes out a new copy of it. It's doubly important to note that because, like, when we went from OpenShift 1.1 to 1.2, things changed with ActiveMQ, things changed with some of the other syntax files, and if you were actually storing a hard copy of that in Puppet and pushed it out, you were going to break stuff. So the nice thing is that Augeas is a native type within Puppet. So again, you can now say, for my node configurations, I just want you to go into broker.conf or node.conf and change public IP. I just want you to change cloud domain. Ignore everything else that's there. Set all that. And as far as languages go, there's bindings for Ruby, there's bindings in Perl, Python, OCaml. But then additionally on top of that, we've got Java, Haskell, Lua, PHP, Go, etc. So let's actually take a real look at this, though, so that you can see more of what I'm talking about. So I have an actual system up here. Let me go into it and
make the
at the same
font
time
there
make it big enough so that folks can actually see it. So I'm going to go into my broker here. And first and foremost, there's a command line tool. If you don't want to do any programming at all, called augtool. And this allows you to say, oh, by the way, all of the OpenShift bindings for this, I wrote. They're pushed upstream, and I've been using them actively to configure all of the nodes and brokers that I've been working with. So you're able to say, so show me the files in etc OpenShift, all of them. And you see that we have our resourcelimits.conf, and it saves all of your comments and everything as well. So resourcelimits.conf. Now, in this case, you saw that because I'm a non-privileged user. That's the only file that I can actually read. If I go into this and run this again as a privileged user, if I can type my password correctly, run the same thing. Now I've got my broker conf, I've got broker dev conf, console, and actually working with all of these configuration files. In my case, I'm doing mainly Python. It means that I can go through and simply say, so instantiate an Augeas object, and I'm also doing some stuff with Yum here. So I'm checking to see if a couple packages are installed, run through them, and then, okay, so grab all my configs starting at the root, and I want broker conf cloud domain, I want max gears, I want my node profiles, etc. Do a few checks, and now they're directly available inside this. Similarly, if I wanted to save things out, I could say config set and config save, and the end result is now I can easily go through and grab things like telling me that this system is running as small. I've got the CPU share set down super, super far, and because same things before, because I am not a privileged user, it was not able to read broker comp, so I do that, and now I go from having a maximum of none gears to a maximum of 100 gears. So it's really a lightning speed here of blowing through it, but if you are curious about some more information here, as we said, Augeas.net is the main page. It's one of our ET projects. It's been in Koji for quite a while, so if you want to go through and grab some of the files for it.
What is the file name?
Augeas.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Augeas is the package name. Augeas libs is where the actual definitions are stored. So if you were to go into user share Augeas, now there's actually interesting distinction here. So if you wanted to ship within OpenShift origin, for example, an OpenShift-Augeas, where you could ship your own lenses, where you controlled them, etc., you can stick them into that path right there. Dist is what is actually shipped by the Augeas libs. So that helps when I do QIF. So Augeas libs is what actually ships that. I just rebuilt this one a little while ago. The definition of the configuration files is actually super, super simple. This is where you get into regex and a little bit of other magic. If you're comfortable with regex, you can go for it. This is where I was joking around about how Krishna was ruining my life one day with the comments in a JSON file, which is not completely valid, but let me, which one was it here? There is native types here as well, like XML, where you can rely on the fact that other people are maintaining that and just say, no, give me an XML type and parse it out. And it handles figuring out what comments look like, you know, what all of the node definitions look like. And, I highly recommend reading David's paper that he gave to it was a SAGE presentation a few years ago. But at this point, I will say, rather than wasting any more time, grab me if you're interested in more information about this, and we can move on from there.
Thank you.